Welcome back to the Uncorked podcast, where we talk about personal branding, marketing, and working together without killing each other.
You're saying the intro different. It's
but
where we talk.
What about don't read off the thing?
But it's not marketing. It's business. It's business.
But you know how it ends. It ends with not killing each other.
Yeah, but you still have to say what we're talking. So it's personal branding, business.
Guys, I got roasted for not prep or for over prepping. No, this is going in it because I need to prove a point. I got roasted for over prepping, and then I was told to improvise, and then I improvised, and now it's a problem.
Let me do the intro then. Here.
No. I do the intros. Guys, the intros are my thing.
But now I'm going to show them because since we're running this now.
You do better with intros?
Guys, welcome to the Uncorked podcast, where we talk about the highs and lows of running a business, building a personal brand, and working together and not trying to kill each other. How was that?
I still think I do it better.
I don't know. I think that was good.
All right.
So episode 2. We are going to be talking about goal setting and just future planning with your significant other. I think it's an important conversation to have. And I think the best place to start is let's just define success. What does success mean to you?
Yeah, I think success is super personal. But I like what you touched on, and like your partner should be on the same page with how you guys define success. So although it's personal, like there's definitely a connected piece to success and goal planning too, I would say. For me personally, I think it depends on what I am working on. Like if I'm working on something in my personal life, if it's something for my job, is it something for Champagne Ange? I think I have different levels of like what I expect to deliver when it comes to success. And I think that there's some places where I'm a bit more lenient. So for me, if it's something really challenging that I set out to do and I come very close, but I don't accomplish it, I think I'm a little bit easier on myself because I'm like, well, I made a lot of great progress and I probably wouldn't have even been here in the first place. Whereas if it's something in like work, I feel like we're very hard on ourselves, and it's like there's no option but to succeed. And even if you come close, like I feel like we don't accept that for ourselves. So for me, I think it's really situational and how important like fully achieving that goal is for me.
Yeah, I think you said it when you talked about it being subjective. I think for me, and it's a super personal, I think everyone has a different definition of success. For me, I stick by 4 pillars. And these 4 pillars is wealth. So that's financial freedom. That is health. How healthy am I? Am I dealing with any problems, X, Y, Z? Then there's love, which is, do I have a great relationship with people in my life, whether it's my girlfriend or significant other, whether it's my family or close friends.
Better be great.
And then lastly, I think this is obviously the most important one, is just happiness. Like, am I enjoying what I do? Do I wake up looking forward towards the day? So when you guys are thinking about, hey, what does success mean to me? I think there's a bunch of different questions you need to ask yourself. I think I'm going to pull it up because I don't want to forget any of these ones. But I think there's a few questions that you got to ask yourself. When you're figuring out personal success, you should be asking yourself, like, what are your personal values and beliefs? What are your passions? What are your strengths and talents? What are your career aspirations and financial goals? I think that's huge. And then also just personal goals and milestones. Like, what do you want to achieve in life? I think when figuring out what does personal success look like? Those answer it. As a couple now, I think all of those matter 100%. For sure. But I also think that you need to ask, and again, just reading this, is how do you define success in a relationship, and what are those shared goals or achievement you want to accomplish together? Because personal goals are completely different. I think even when we built out our 10 goals for 2023, they're completely different from what my personal goals are versus what yours versus what ours is together.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it just goes to show you that, I don't know, personally, like I think in a relationship, it's healthy to have some of your own goals as well as shared goals, because I think that in your relationship, like you should be on the same page, but at the same time, like you do need to work on yourself too, always. And I think that's why when we did this goal setting exercise, it was really cool to see, because we did our personal ones without like influencing each other. And I think we kind of impressed each other with what we came up with, because it was areas that like we personally wanted to work on versus influencing.
I think just for anyone that doesn't know, in 2023, we decided, hey, let's write out 10 goals that we want to achieve in this year, and let's just focus on those. I think a lot of people, and I experienced this the year before, I had put 10 goals out, and at the end of the year, I was so distracted with so many different stuff that I think I did 2 out of the 10. So this year, what we decided was, hey, let's come up with 10 goals. 3 of them are going to be for me, 3 of them are going to be for Ange, and then 4 of them are essentially going to be joint couple goals. So, and the goal here is we're just going to work on these 10 goals and nothing else. So with that being said, like I said, with experience, I always like to share what we've learned, what we've done, where we've messed up. How do you prioritize your goals and just make sure that we're moving forward and making progress to achieving these?
Yeah, I think one thing we talk about a lot, and it took a long time to realize this, is there's a difference between setting your goals and actually achieving them. So I think we've heard everyone, talk about new year, new me, talk about this is like the year I'm going to turn 30. I need to set all these goals. And it's like, awesome. You wrote out a list on a piece of paper. Now, what are you doing to actually make them a reality? And I think it's something that does take dedication, and sometimes you kind of have to scale back on the number of goals just to be able to actually achieve like the ones that really matter to you. Yeah. And I think, and like, not to be cringe, but everyone's heard this acronym, like you need to set SMART goals.
I was thinking the same thing, but I was
this is like our day job coming out right now. Like, but it's true. Like you do need to have that kind of structure to be able to meet them and achieve them and track them, because everyone can say like, oh, I'm going to be, I don't know, fit this year. Okay. What's fit for me is very different than what's fit for Kiefer, very different than what a bodybuilder would classify as fit. So I think it needs to be, you're kind of your own worst enemy. And if you're not setting yourself up for success, like you've already failed.
It needs to be measurable.
Yeah.
It needs to be achievable. It needs to be relevant. And lastly, my most important one is it needs to be time bound. Like we got to have some dates to it. So I think even with us, like how we do this every single Monday, we meet up now and we talk about our goals, and we'll actually break them down into smaller action items. And this is something I learned with like work as well, is like, hey, what are our key initiatives for the year? And what are those steps that we're going to take to achieve those key initiatives? Totally. And then we essentially just build a plan of action and we just achieve it. We just go one by one and break down that one big goal into 10 steps. It gets so much easier when you break that down to very small steps. Yeah.
And I think too, like with that, tracking progress really helps, because we've all been there. Like out of nowhere, 6 months have gone by and you're like, oh my gosh, I've done nothing. Like that happens all the time because we get busy, right? Life happens. And I think that's been really important for us, as well as like accountability. And I don't think you necessarily need to like do this with your significant other, but like you can even do it with friends. Keep each other on the same page, right? It's really hard to let yourself, it's really easy to let yourself down, but it's really hard to let someone else down.
Yeah, and I think my favorite, and I think this is more your favorite because of how often we do this, is celebrate your successes. Doesn't matter how small they are. Celebrate them, acknowledge them, talk about what motivated you in this, talk about what you enjoyed from the other partner and what they did to help achieve that success, and celebrate that. I think, and I told you, Daryl kind of told me this. Daryl Kiefer, CEO of Candy Box Marketing, little plug there, but he had told me one day when we were at a offsite, and he basically said, let's write out all the accomplishments we've ever done. And the team was writing out different stuff. We achieved this, we achieved that, we achieved this. It was like a full list of different things. And at the end, he was like, I want everyone to cheer and clap and make as much noise and celebrate for 1 full minute. And everyone did it. And like, there was about 30 of us, and it was like crazy, super loud. It felt like it was a concert. And at the end of it, he took that paper and he just ripped it. So like, imagine everyone celebrating, imagine everyone like hyped up, and then suddenly he just ripped a paper. We're all looking at him, we're like, what is going on? And what he said next is one thing now I've taken and I've put into us as well as into our like initiatives, our goal setting, is like, he's like, we just celebrated that. Now let's put that behind and let's move forward and start doing new stuff, and let's start getting more achievements. Because what happens, and this happens to so many people, we've seen it so much, is they just hold on to those achievements that they've done 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago, and then 5 years ago, and then a decade goes by and they're still thinking about how they were valedictorian in high school and they haven't achieved anything else. So I think the biggest thing is celebrate your successes, acknowledge them, celebrate them, do whatever it is that you like to celebrate, and then move forward and start achieving something next.
I like that it took me 7 years to convince Kiefer to celebrate his wins, but it took Daryl 1 day.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes.
Just saying.
My next question to you is, this one is again for advice for couples. Advice for anyone couples that are trying to set goals and just plan for the future together, what would you tell them?
I think that my best piece of advice is like consciously dedicate time to doing it. I think that people really tend to get like complacent in a lot of aspects of their life, especially when, you know, day-to-day life is so busy. So for us, like Kiefer already touched on this, we have a weekly one-to-one, and I know that sounds like very corporate world and very like
I tell
not
people that.
fun, but we love it because it means that like in that moment it's all business. Like there's no we're dating, there's no like, it's like we're here to talk and we need to get through this, and when we're done it's like, okay, like let's go for dinner, let's whatever, next task. But I think that intentional time to like really be mindful is a huge one.
I think and you said this, and I've told people before, like, yeah, Ange and I have one-to-ones, and people just literally look at me and they're like, you have one-to-ones with your girlfriend? And I do think people just need to start normalizing that with your significant other. Like, normalize time to speak with your significant other about different things in your life. Again, we do a lot of business stuff together, obviously, but we don't just talk about business. Like, we'll go through our different brands, what we're doing, updates on our goals, but we also talk about house chores and different things that we need to do in the house. We talk about the weddings that we're up and coming. So again, I definitely think it's something that people just need to normalize more, is like sitting down, dedicating time to speak to each other about just next steps, what you guys are doing, how do we achieve that.
And I think too, like, it inevitably eliminates the opportunity for like miscommunication and eventual like bickering, because there's no confusion as to like what you're going to be accomplishing and what I'm going to be accomplishing, and like conquer and divide. It's very clear.
That's just that honesty and openness, right? And it's like, hey, how do you build a safe environment for you and your significant other to talk about your passions, to talk about your fears, just to talk to each other without being judged or ridiculed or anything like that.
And I would say like most of the stuff we've accomplished started with one of us being like, hey, I have a crazy idea, but hear me out. Like this podcast, that was one of those conversations, right? So I think it goes a really long way.
And I talked about this already, but it's like, how do we break down these goals? How do we support each other? How do we be flexible? I think flexible is huge, because I was talking to my sister about this the other day, is and this is most people have milestones in their life. Like, hey, at 25, I'm going to start dating someone. At 28, I'm going to get married. At 30, I'm going to have a kid. At 31, I'm going to have a house. And then when you turn 32 and you have none of that, what happens? You feel like you failed.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I'm so big on, hey, be flexible, because there's things that are going to happen in our life that we just can't control. There's things that are going to happen that we just don't know will happen until it happens. And you're going to feel like it's ruined your plans. But that's the idea of just being flexible and being able to understand, like, hey, this is a minor setback, but we're going to come back even stronger.
Yeah. 30 also feels a lot different when you're 15.
This is true. This is true. I wish someone had told us that. So yeah, if you, I want to kind of wrap this up. I love the summaries. I think it's a great way to just end it. I think it's a great way to just give people key takeaways. If you had to just summarize like this podcast, some takeaways, what would you say?
Yeah, I think a big one is like, you should have goals. You should have goals in your personal life. You should have goals in your professional life. You should have goals straight up in your relationship. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's just, I think, super important. I think that being really open and transparent and like intentional about the time you're setting to talk through those goals and achieve them is also huge. And I feel like the last one, at least for me, is, you know, checking in on your progress, because the last thing you want is to kind of feel like you let yourself down. But on the same vein, I think like give yourself some grace and flexibility, and like it's okay to fail. 9 times out of 10 when you fail, you learn something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my takeaways.
Yeah, one thing we didn't really talk about is and I want to bring this up now, is just keeping that conversation going.
Yeah.
I think what I don't want you guys to get confused on is, hey, it's not that Monday afternoon that we said we dedicate time to, so we can't talk about it right now. So keeping that conversation going, again, that openness and honesty, making sure that, hey, like, and for us, like, hey, we do our Monday connects, but when we're at the gym on the treadmill, I'm like, you know how my brain runs. I'm running through all the different stuff we need to do. So keeping that conversation open, having it, that openness and honesty with your significant other when you're doing this, I just think that, again, that working together, planning that out, and just having that open communication is going to take you levels ahead of everyone else.
Totally.
So with that being said, guys, I think this is good.
Guys, gonna intro and outro.
Okay. All right. So we're going to let her do the outro this time. Feel free to outro us into.
You guys are going to have to let us know who does what better. So guys, thank you for joining us for Uncorked. Like, subscribe, follow, share it with someone. We really just want to get the message out there. We have fun. We drink some bubbly. And that's pretty much it. And whiskey.
Cheers.
Uncorked.